Ever watched a historical movie and thought, did that really happen? Well, grab your popcorn because we're about to uncover the top movies that got history all wrong. Welcome back to Mysteries Debunked, where we separate fact from fiction in your favorite films. Before we get into today's list, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. In a dark theater, munching on overpriced popcorn, watching larger-than-life historical figures duke it out on the big screen. It's epic, it's emotional, it's completely wrong. That's right, my friends. Today we're diving into the top movies that got history all wrong. So wrong, in fact, that actual historians might need a stiff drink after watching them. Now, before we start, let's get one thing straight. We're not here to bash these movies. Heck, some of them are downright classics. We're just here to separate the historical wheat from the Hollywood chaff. After all, as the great Mark Twain once said, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. And boy, did these filmmakers take that advice to heart. So, without further ado, let's kick off our countdown. Argo 2012, the CIA caper that wasn't quite so capery. Argo. The movie that proved Ben Affleck could direct and grow a really impressive beard. This nail-biting thriller about a CIA rescue mission during the Iranian hostage crisis had us all on the edge of our seats. But here's the thing, while the broad strokes of the story are true, Hollywood decided to jazz it up a bit. You know, like adding a pinch of salt to your grandma's already perfect cookie recipe. In the movie, we see a heart-pounding airport chase scene that would make Jason Bourne proud. The thing is, in reality, the escape was about as dramatic as going through airport security on a Tuesday morning. No last-minute phone calls, no security guards chasing the plane down the runway. Just a group of Americans calmly boarding a Swiss Air flight, probably wondering if they'd get those little packets of peanuts. But wait, there's more! The film portrays the CIA as the sole hero of this daring rescue. In reality, it was more of a team effort. The Canadians played a huge role in harboring the Americans and helping with their escape. It's like the movie forgot to invite Canada to the We Saved the Day party. And let's not forget about the British and New Zealand embassies. In the film, they're shown turning away the American fugitives. In reality, they were instrumental in helping them. It's like Hollywood decided to play a game of international diplomatic hot potato. But hey, I get it. Argo sounds way cooler than that time some diplomats had a really stressful vacation in Iran. Still, it's important to remember that sometimes the truth is stranger and often more interesting than fiction. Pocahontas, 1995. Disney's animated imagination. Next up, we have Disney's Pocahontas, a movie that taught us all that you can paint with all the colors of the wind. It also taught us that historical accuracy is about as important to Disney as shoes are to their princesses. Let's start with the obvious. Pocahontas and John Smith's love story. It's romantic, it's beautiful, it's completely made up. In reality, when Pocahontas met John Smith, she was about 10 or 11 years old. Smith was pushing 30. I don't know about you, but that age gap is giving me more creeps than a Disney villain's lair. And speaking of age, by the time the events of the movie take place, Pocahontas would have been a teenager. But Disney decided to age her up faster than a kid who's just discovered coffee. Why? Well, I guess teenager saves English settler doesn't have quite the same ring as statuesque woman falls in love with rugged explorer. Remember that dramatic scene where Pocahontas saves John Smith from execution? Well, historians are still debating whether that actually happened or if Smith just had a really vivid imagination. It's like the 17th century version of that fish that got away. And let's not even get started on the talking tree. I mean, I'm pretty sure if trees could talk back then, we'd have heard all about it by now. Although, to be fair, if I were a talking tree, I'd probably keep quiet too. Who wants that kind of attention? But perhaps the biggest historical faux pas in the movie is its portrayal of the relationship between the Native Americans and the English settlers. The film paints a picture of misunderstanding that could be solved with a catchy tune and a leap of faith. In reality, the clash between these two cultures was far more complex and, unfortunately, far more tragic. Still, I have to give Disney some credit. They managed to turn a complex historical event into a 90-minute musical featuring a raccoon sidekick. If that's not Hollywood magic, I don't know what is. The Last Samurai, 2003. Tom Cruise's Japanese vacation. Of The Last Samurai, or as I like to call it, Tom Cruise's excellent adventure in feudal Japan. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a visually stunning film with some epic battle scenes. But historically accurate? Well, let's just say it's about as authentic as sushi from a gas station. First off, let's address the elephant in the room. Or should I say, the American in the dojo. The main character, Nathan Algren, is entirely fictional. That's right, folks. There was no hard-drinking, PTSD-suffering American soldier who became the last champion of the samurai. It's like Hollywood looked at Japanese history and thought, you know what this needs? More Tom Cruise. But let's give credit where credit is due. The movie does get some things right. The Meiji Restoration was a real historical period when Japan was rapidly modernizing and westernizing. And there was indeed a samurai rebellion led by Saigo Takamori, who's considered the last true samurai. But that's where the historical accuracy train derails faster than you can say katana. In the movie, we see the samurai as these noble warriors fighting against the evils of modernization. In reality, many samurai were actually at the forefront of Japan's modernization efforts. It's like the film forgot that change can come from within, not just from a Hollywood heartthrob in a kimono. And let's talk about that kimono for a second. The film's portrayal of samurai culture is about as authentic as a fortune cookie. From the way they speak to the way they fight, it's clear that Hollywood's idea of samurai comes more from other movies than from actual history. But perhaps the most egregious historical error is the film's ending. In the movie, the samurai go out in a blaze of glory, charging against the Imperial Army's Gatling guns with just their swords. It's dramatic, it's emotional, it's completely made up. In reality, the samurai rebellion ended with much less cinematic flair and much more political negotiation. Still, I have to admit, watching Tom Cruise try to master the way of the samurai is pretty entertaining. It's like watching a fish try to climb a tree. Not historically accurate, but you can't look away. Pearl Harbor, 2001, When Love Trumps War. Pearl Harbor, the movie that proved that even one of the most significant events of World War II could be turned into a love triangle. Because nothing says Day of Infamy like a good old-fashioned romantic drama, right? Now, to be fair, the film does get some things right. There was indeed a place called Pearl Harbor, and it was indeed attacked on December 7th, 1941. But that's where the historical accuracy train jumps the tracks and careens into the sea of Hollywood imagination. Let's start with our main characters. Rafe and Danny, our dashing pilot protagonists, are about as historically accurate as a smartphone in a World War II movie. They're completely fictional, which means their dramatic love triangle with Nurse Evelyn is about as real as my chances of winning an Oscar. But it's not just the characters that take liberties with history. The film's portrayal of the attack itself is, let's say, creatively interpreted. For instance, the movie shows the Japanese planes flying between the mountains of Oahu. In reality, they approached from the sea. It's like the filmmakers thought, you know what this historically accurate recreation needs? More scenic shots. And let's talk about that dramatic scene where our heroes jump into planes and start dogfighting with the Japanese. It's exciting, it's heroic, it's completely made up. In reality, most of the American planes were destroyed on the ground before they could even take off. But I guess our heroes helplessly watch their planes get blown up doesn't have quite the same ring to it. The film also takes some interesting liberties with the timeline. It compresses events that happened over months into a matter of days. It's like they put history into a time blender and hit puree. But perhaps the most glaring historical inaccuracy is the film's portrayal of the American response. In the movie, it seems like the US bounces back almost immediately, launching the Doolittle raid on Tokyo. In reality, it took months for the US to regroup and plan this counterattack. But I guess months of strategic planning and rebuilding doesn't make for a very exciting movie tagline. Still, I have to give the film credit for one thing. It certainly made a lot of people interested in learning about the real Pearl Harbor, even if it was just to point out everything the movie got wrong. Apocalypto, 2006, Mel Gibson's Mayan Mayhem. Next up on our historical hit list is Apocalypto, or as I like to call it, Mel Gibson's wild ride through pre-Columbian America. Now don't get me wrong, this film is a visual feast. But when it comes to historical accuracy, well, let's just say it's about as authentic as a plastic pyramid souvenir from Vegas. First off, let's address the elephant in the jungle, the timeline. The movie is set during the decline of the Maya civilization, but it ends with the arrival of Spanish conquistadors. That's like having a movie about ancient Rome end with the invention of the iPhone. The Maya civilization had largely collapsed centuries before the Spanish arrived. But I guess Apocalypto, a few centuries later, didn't have the same ring to it. Then there's the whole human sacrifice thing. Now, the Maya did practice human sacrifice, but the film cranks it up to 11. It's like they thought, you know what this civilization needs? More blood. The scale and frequency of sacrifices shown in the movie are way over the top. It's historical accuracy on steroids, and then some more steroids. And let's talk about those Mayan cities. In the film, they're shown as these bustling metropolises at the height of their power. In reality, by the time of the Spanish conquest, many Mayan cities had been abandoned for centuries. It's like showing New York City in all its glory in a movie set in 2525, but perhaps the most glaring inaccuracy is the portrayal of Mayan culture itself. The film mashes together elements from different Mesoamerican civilizations faster than you can say cultural appropriation. It's like Gibson took a big pot, threw in some Maya, added a dash of Aztec, sprinkled in some Inca, and stirred it all together to create his own historical stew. And don't even get me started on the Jaguar chase scene. I mean, it's exciting and all, but it's about as historically accurate as, well, a Jaguar chase scene in a Mayan city. Still, I have to give the film credit for one thing. It's probably the only Hollywood blockbuster where the dialogue is entirely in Yucatec Maya. Although, given all the other inaccuracies, I wouldn't be surprised if they were actually speaking Klingon and just told us it was Maya. JFK, 1991. Oliver Stone's Conspiracy Extravaganza. Alright folks, buckle up because we're about to dive into the rabbit hole that is Oliver Stone's JFK. This film is like the cinematic equivalent of your conspiracy theorist uncle at Thanksgiving dinner. Entertaining, but you probably shouldn't take everything it says at face value. Now let's get one thing straight. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy is one of the most scrutinized events in American history. But Stone looked at all that scrutiny and said, "Hold my beer." The result? A 3-hour conspiracy theory bonanza that makes The X-Files look like a documentary. The movie centers around Jim Garrison, a New Orleans district attorney who becomes convinced that there's more to Kennedy's assassination than meets the eye. And by more, I mean a conspiracy involving the CIA, the FBI, the military-industrial complex, and probably your next-door neighbor's dog. Stone takes real historical events and people and blends them with speculation and conjecture faster than you can say magic bullet theory. It's like he put history in a blender, hit puree, and then added a healthy dose of what if. One of the biggest liberties the film takes is with Garrison himself. In the movie, he's portrayed as a crusading hero, fighting against all odds to uncover the truth. In reality, many historians view Garrison's investigation as misguided at best, and potentially harmful at worst. It's like Stone took Garrison's Wikipedia page and hit the Make Awesome button. Then there's the film's portrayal of Lee Harvey Oswald. The movie suggests that Oswald was just a patsy, a fall guy for the real conspirators. It presents this theory not as speculation, but as fact. It's like Stone looked at the Warren Commission report and said, "Nah, I can do better." But perhaps the most controversial aspect of the film is its use of the famous Zapruder film, the home movie that captured the assassination. Stone recreates and manipulates this footage to support his theories. It's like he's playing a high-stakes game of spot the difference with one of the most important pieces of historical evidence of the 20th century. Now, to be fair, Stone never claimed JFK was a documentary. He called it a counter-myth to the official story. But the line between fact and fiction in this film is blurrier than a Bigfoot sighting. Still, I have to give Stone credit for one thing. JFK certainly got people talking. It even led to the passage of the President John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Collection Act of 1992, which mandated the release of all assassination-related documents. So in a way, this historically inaccurate film actually contributed to historical research. Talk about a plot twist! 300, 2006, Sparta's Six-Pack Spectacular. Next up on our historical hit list is 300, or as I like to call it, the movie that launched 1,000 gym memberships. This film is to ancient history what a monster truck is to fuel efficiency. Flashy, over the top, and not exactly concerned with accuracy. Now let's get one thing straight. The Battle of Thermopylae did happen. There were indeed 300 Spartans who made a heroic last stand against the Persian army. But that's where the historical accuracy train derails and crashes into a pit of CGI abs. Hollywood may love to entertain, but it often takes liberties with the facts. Which of these movies surprised you the most with its inaccuracies? Let us know in the comments! And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into Hollywood's historical blunders, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Mysteries Debunked. Your support helps us keep bringing you the truth behind the fiction. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep debunking those mysteries.